I'm a man of correct standing, so it is 5:30, so we will get started for this briefing. Thank you, elected members and staff, for joining us. If anyone is joining online, thank you very much for tuning in. This is the first agenda briefing for 2025, and of course we'll have a full OCM next week where I'll make a few comments and announcements. We do have apologies from Councillor Brown, Councillor Steck and Councillor Steele. Are there any declarations of interest for tonight, councillors? All okay? Thank you. Into the report, and I am leaning on Liam this evening because my laptop is not here, so hopefully he doesn't miss anything. If he does, let me know. Item 10.31 is the bushfire amendment laws. Any questions on this? All okay? Thank you. The 2025 election bits and pieces in there. Any questions on this? No questions. I just have one. I mean, I think I ask it in most years it comes up. Is there still any more indication from the Electoral Commission to look at online voting at any stage? CEO, are you aware of anything in that regard?
Thanks, Mayor. Not aware of anything that's been raised in that regard, but I might have asked the Manager of Governance if he had any further info.
Thanks, CEO. No further info as such. It would be a policy position of the state government, not the Electoral Commission. It was flagged at one point during the reform conversations, but to my knowledge was certainly never formalised, and that will be a decision for a future government to make as to whether or not they want to introduce that for local government elections.
Thank you. All good. Oh, Councillor Turner, another question?
I didn't get the chance. Is there an increase because it's a mayoral vote? What's the difference between a normal election and a mayoral?
I think there normally is extra cost with the mayoral one, but I'll ask for some confirmation for that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll ask the Manager of Governance to provide a response.
Sure, thanks, Mayor and CEO. Generally, mayoral elections are slightly higher, but that's typically only on the basis that there's a higher return rate. So when electors return their ballot papers, they'll still get returned in the one envelope, so one postage cost. Just historically, the response rates for mayoral elections are typically in the mid to high 30%. For non-mayoral elections, it's usually in the high 20s. So on that basis, they're slightly more expensive.
The question. I noticed a big difference in the increases in pricing on quite a lot of things. How do we budget for that? Is that budgeted in next year's budget, or is this a significant increase?
Thanks, Councillor Turner. Thank you, Mayor. We do factor that in, so we obviously do try and factor that into the long-term financial plan. But as you know, every year as we work through the budget process and we firm up estimates, there is, sometimes additional costs like this that we have to factor in. So we certainly do have that in the long-term financial plan, but we will adjust that as costs get firmed up or increases come forward.
Further questions? Councillor Ramesh?
Just a quick query. With the electors, I think it said something like 28,500 electors for the Bunbury, but the population is about 55, is that right? Current census. So how does it? Is it because people are not registered as electors, or just transient population?
Through the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll ask the Manager of Governance to answer that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks again, CEO and Mayor and Councillor Ramesh. To answer your question, an elector is either a ratepayer of the City of Bunbury who, it's the best way to define an elector, someone that's on the state and federal roll within the City of Bunbury locality, or a person who owns property within the City of Bunbury who no longer resides and applies to be on the owner-occupier roll. So population and who is an elector aren't 100% correlated, obviously.
Any other questions on this one? Thank you. 10.33. CEO performance indicators. Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question around one of the comments was regard to new gross rental values will be applied from July 1st, 25. The city will be modelling the new GRVs to identify. I guess there's no, we are looking, I guess, at balancing the new GRVs against our old rate in the dollar, aren't we? So we'll be looking at equalising. This isn't about capitalising on those changes, is it?
See ya.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Andrew, for the question. Look, 99 times out of 100, most local governments would use the GRV process and equalise, so they would adjust the rate in the dollar to bring the rate base back down to what it was prior to the changes in the GRV. So that comment probably could be better reflected. That would be the normal standard practice. Obviously, Capel chose not to do that. The Shire of Capel chose not to do that last year, and that was part of redressing probably some historical issues for them as well. Again, through the budget process, we will model that. We don't have differential rates here. I'm not sure when you look at the different categories of properties whether there's any need to do anything. As you know, I've had previous experience at places like the town of Claremont where differential rates were introduced because the changes in the categories were quite significant. So, but there's no intent to do that here, and we will bring this up as part of the budget process.
Any other questions on? Sure.
So the only other, thanks Mayor, the comment that I'd make is I wanted to acknowledge Jane Parsons who put together the bulk of this report. What we've tried to do is sometimes we're not very good at telling elected members about some of the things that we are working on, and some of as you can see there, there's a large range of things that we are doing and decisions that we've taken to try and reduce cost as well. So hopefully elected members saw some of the opportunities in there, but also some of the things that we are doing.
Thank you. Further questions? Thank you very much. 10.3.4, Financial Management Report for November. All okay. 10.3.5, the accounts paid. All okay. 10.3.6 is the financial report for December. Okay. Thank you. And the schedule of accounts paid for December. All good. Thank you. The local emergency management arrangements. Councillor Quain.
As a new Greater Bunbury Rotary member, I've been undertaking Rotary training, and last Thursday it was mentioned that Rotary have the resources or the structure to feed into disaster recovery. An example was creating a tool library for tools for if you have to chainsaws and things like that, and also sea containers. So I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity for, if there was any appetite for reviewing the membership of the
from the committee.
LEMC members.
Yep.
And yeah.
CEO, comment on that?
I'm not familiar with that, but I wonder whether the Director of Sustainable Development may have a comment in regards to the membership of LEMAC and Councillor Quain's question.
Thanks, CEO. I will direct that to Mark Allies just to see what opportunities there are. I know with some service providers in our community have offered support through various means, and that has on occasions caused complications. So I'd like to get it clear that those things are required. So I can come back to you on that.
as we've seen during the last 12 months, were that group in action a few times. It is all government agencies, and it's probably that higher end, where then you've got some other organisations which are probably then assisting in other ways, whether that's your the different charity groups who come along and support through that regard, and the Red Cross and those kind of things. So they're not parted directly through LEMAC, but they're obviously still played a very big part in it as well. So we can probably take it on notice and see what what we can get for the Rotary Group to be involved in some capacity when required. Thank you. Further, Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I guess, and this can probably be taken on notice, I had a couple of questions. There was different parts of the document talked about who was to speak to the press. One section talks about the CEO is the only person to make statements to the press on page 291. 436 states that the Mayor speaks during the recovery. 440 says that both speak, so there was just some inconsistencies around there. So I'm happy for that one just to go on notice if that's okay, and I'll follow on my other questions. Page 294, there was still elements in the table there talking about COVID-19 requirements, and considering this document is forward-looking for the next 5 years, I guess it was more about, is that necessary in a contemporary document that we're sort of semi-past the pandemic, I guess?
Page 294, we'll take that one on notice as well, Councillor Andrew.
And one final one, there was, in the document, there was a section of creation of the high risk persons and groups emergency plan, which is one of the documents in there. Do we know if CODAP took part in the creation of this document? And if not, would there be an opportunity for them to run their eye over it? I think would they provide some good insight?
Sure. I can ask Steve if he's got a comment on that now, but otherwise we can take on notice.
Thank you, Mayor. I think if you're happy, we'll take that on notice, and Andrew will follow those up in due course.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. Any other questions on this? I don't know what that beeping is. Okay, no good. Any other questions? Yeah, so it's been going, been reversing for a while. Any other questions on 10.4.1? Thank you. Keep moving. Deal with the Councillor Quain's leave next week. There's nothing further. So thank you, councillors. We'll call this meeting closed. We'll just ask elected members that we can just hang back for a moment with Al. We don't start this fine. We'll just chat about the next experience.